A lot is happening. Hey, let me say a pleasant good evening to a man who is no stranger to this program. He's always here to connect the dots, and he does that so professionally. And his writing is really, really something that you have to admire because he has been spot on with everything that he has predicted so far. Let me say a pleasant good evening to veteran journalist Ken Ali.
Good evening to you, Mikey, and to all many listeners and viewers.
Well, Ken, as I said, you have been spot on from day one with your predictions. I mean, I've read everything. You came and you told us, of course, that there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some reshuffling. There's going to be some individuals who will be out, and some, of course, will be promoted, and that we've seen. And of course, today the date has been set. The bell has been rung. But what are we looking at? We're also hearing in the background some talk about a constitutional crisis. Have you picked up anything on that?
Yes, well, there has been that talk about a constitutional crisis. There are several things that are of relevance. So one, I was told that the date, like you saw, and like you said, I had indicated April 28th. I said so in a newspaper article about 2 or 3 weeks ago. When the opposition leader indicated that she would file a constitutional action against the appointment of Stuart Young, it was decided that they will wait for some time before announcing the election date. Now, as you know, under the Constitution, the government, the Prime Minister must announce a date and give 35 days notice. He's still within that period. I think it's 40 or 41 days.
Right.
They anticipated, the PNM top brass anticipated or looked out to see if the opposition leader will file action. And she did not do that. She did not indicate anything at the Monday night meeting, and so on. So in light of all of that, he went ahead and he named the date. But he had, along with Dr. Rowley, planned a series of dates, and they had sort of reverse engineered the date April 28th, which they were always looking at a sort of early date in the scheme of things, for various reasons. And also, if you follow the PNM history, whenever they launch their candidates at Woodford Square, Dr. Williams and successive leaders would name the election date within the 35-day proviso as soon as possible. So they were quite predictable also in what they did.
Let me just read some of the comments. Well, the comments that were sent by the opposition leader as far as calling of the general election. It says that Young hurriedly called the date to preempt the UNC legal action that was coming regarding his illegitimate and illegal anointing as Prime Minister. Young and the PNM fully well knew that his appointment is illegal and unconstitutional. His appointment would have been shown to be unconstitutional in the courts, and he would then be forced to face a PNM internal election before the general election. Penny would have decimated him in any internal election, and the PNM finances Baku would have been put down. She said the UNC is ready, and we will do what PNM MPs failed to do, which is to protect our country from being gifted to a selfish select group of Young's finances.
Yes, well, he may well have preempted it by his action because it's a fact there's a lot of dissension within the PNM. And that's a clear fact. In fact, I've written also that there is talk of a likely palace coup after the election if the PNM wins against Stuart Young. Now, the PNM's culture is to show a united face. But under that mask, there is a lot of unhappiness, a lot of dissension. And so we have to wait and see if the PNM were to pull through in the election, whether Stuart Young could survive as political leader of the PNM. And I think that will be a real issue moving forward if they're defeated at the polls.
I agree with you. But when you go back to what was said yesterday by Stuart Young, he said that he wanted to open a new chapter in national security and in finance with the reshuffle of both Fitzgerald Hines and Com Imbert. And he says that I think one of the things we are looking to do now is to open a new chapter, and what you are going to see is a lot of different things happening built on a solid platform. Does he have the time to even lay that out? I mean, you just said, of course, it's going to be cosmetic. They're going to rally around their leader. They're going to say, listen, you know, we have to win this thing. We have to unite. But does he really and truly have the time to put this together, to present something that is going to let the electorate feel as though it is on solid ground?
Well, the short answer is no. But what he said, I read that is typical public relations and political speak by the Prime Minister. Now, as I had also written, the PNM has been doing surveys, one of the major financiers has been doing surveys on their behalf, and they found that the three most unpopular government ministers were the Attorney General, who got a 3 months, who fortunately got a 3 month stint of the islands, the Finance Minister, meaning Mr. Imbert, he was highly unpopular, and the Privy Council ruling on the Auditor General issue was a further nail in his political coffin. And of course, everybody knows that Fitzgerald Hines wasn't popular. So the new Prime Minister felt that he needed to offload them as a message to the electorate that if he wins, they're not coming to run those respective ministries. So that's really what it was, essentially what it was. Vishnu Dhanpal has always been he's always been a PNM. He's always been liked. He was by the PNM. He was liked by Patrick Manning. He was a PS under Manning. He was liked by Dr. Rowley. In fact, he also served under the Kamala Prasad administration as a
Permanent secretary, yeah.
Yeah. So, they tapped him. They brought him back from London, where he was the High Commissioner. Very notably, Mikee, he was not able to do anything to forestall this heavy visa requirement that has now been imposed on Trinidadians traveling to London.
He said it came as a shock. He said it came out from nowhere, you know. But then we're hearing that there were discussions taking place, and then you had, of course, the Dr. Rowley, the political leader, not prime, but political leader of the PNM, saying that he doesn't understand what it is that I could say the UK ambassador was telling the High Commissioner or the authorities in England, you know, what exchange of communication there was, because things are a bit cloudy. On one hand, you're hearing that this has been going on for quite a while, and others weighing in and saying that we knew about it, it was a developing issue, but yet still we're hearing that it came like a thief in the night out of nowhere.
No, I am not personally, let me tell you why though. First, let me also indicate that I'm not justifying what the British have done, but it's not correct to say that they did not hold discussion. They did. At the diplomatic level, they held discussions with Trinidad and Tobago representatives. That's a fact. So we ought to have known something was going to take place. That's the first point. The second thing is that the number of people seeking asylum rose from 49 to 439, or a ninefold, almost tenfold increase. In real terms, that would be a small number, but per capita, that was a large number. Like I said, I'm not justifying what they did, but the reality is that there were more and more people. And Mikey, a lot of people are trying to flee Trinidad and Tobago because of the state of the country. Dr. Rowley, in his speech at Woodford Square on Sunday, alluded to the fact that a number of people had fled in the 1980s when things were hard, when we had gone to the IMF and so on. An entire village in Pinal sought refugee status in Canada. So maybe the British authorities were seeking to forestall and prevent something like that happening, because there's a lot of anguish in this country. Apart from the crime situation, a lot of small businesses have shut down. A lot of people feel a sense of hopelessness about the state of the country, a lot of people throughout the country. So maybe the British, who continue to gather intelligence on their countries, and the Prime Minister, well, Dr. Rowley said it correctly on Sunday when he said they gather information and they make reports every single day. So in their estimation, this was a serious matter that on the basis of which they felt they should introduce the visa. But it is not correct to say that they had not indicated to the authorities in Trinidad and Tobago. They had not been holding discussions. They had held discussions over a long period of time.
Yeah, but Ken, even when you look at it, I mean, it seems that all developed nations are either campaigning or making immigration the major issue. That we're seeing that, and it seems as though they're ostracizing us for the reasons that we are not dealing with the issues of social ills, which is crime and the economy, what have you. But I think anyone could have seen that immigration is the main political in the spotlight when it comes to the issues that many countries are going on the election campaign trail with.
Well, very interestingly, just last week, the U.S. reinforced Trinidad and the advisory to their citizens about Trinidad and Tobago, a Tier 3 travel advisory.
Right.
And that Tier 3 says, do not travel unless necessary. Right? If you have to travel for business or whatever, then go. So the Americans have also had their eyes focused on us, and they have not lowered the tier. I also want to add to this, Mikey, an important thing that the media has not picked up, and indeed a whole lot of things they have not picked up. This week, the U.S. President Donald Trump used an ancient piece of legislation called the Alien Enemies Act, which is really used only in wartime.
Yeah, that goes way back.
That's from Venezuela. He deported them to El
Salvador.
Salvador.
Right.
The judge prevented him from doing it, but by the time the judge issued the warning, the order, they were already on the plane. I have been writing about this and nobody else in the media. Trinidad comes from a prison, and they started a prison in Venezuela. And I'm not telling you what I'm making up, I'm telling you, and I'm quoting details here. CARICOM employed a Canadian firm. I don't have the name on my mind, but I could get it for you. And that firm in 2019, that firm was employed to look at human trafficking, drug trafficking, gun trafficking in the Caribbean. And they indicated that Trinidad was getting through to Trinidad and Tobago and bringing contraband goods, and there were the human trafficking, guns and so on, and they were working with local gangsters. As the Minister of National Security in that time, one Stuart Young, they did nothing, and Trinidad continued to collaborate with our gangsters here, and our crime rate went up and so on. As soon as he became president, and he appointed a Homeland Secretary, her name is Noem, the other name slips me. They cracked down on Trinidad in the Bronx, and
Right,
the arrested leader, his name is Pacheco, Zambrano Pacheco. And the arrested others. In Colorado, they had a little nest there and so on. And they arrested a whole lot of them. And those are the guys, if not they themselves, the people have been coming in and out of Trinidad and Tobago through our porous borders in Cedros and Icacos and Erin and so on for years. And we have done nothing about it. And that's an important security matter. And the international world, remember there are 5 American security agencies based in Trinidad. They were the ones who were responsible for that cocaine bust last week.
Right.
And so on. And all of this has taken place, and the developed world, which shares intelligence information, has taken note of the security situation in Trinidad, the gun running. Trinidad and Tobago doesn't manufacture guns, and look at the high-powered guns we have and so on. So all those things the developed world has taken note of, the British, the American, the Canadian, and so on. And all those are factors that impact their decision, their intelligence gathering and the decision making.
Yeah, and you're right. And one would think that, seeing all of this unfold, that we would be somewhere in the mix of it, doing what is best to protect our interests. But yet still many people are now saying this came like a thief in the night. They were shocked. But again, you just gave a short history on how this has been taking place for quite some time. It's amazing. Now going back to the new finance minister, Vishnu Danpal, he said yesterday that his tenure will not bring financial hardship to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As if to say, reading between the lines there, that have we been purposely being economically punished by the former finance minister come Imbert? And if so, why? Was there some sort of strategy to actually starve some of the constituencies or MPs?
Well, you have to wonder. And on what is the basis? I guess he did in didn't prove it much. And so what is the basis? Because we have not diversified the economy. Oil and gas production are the lowest, and prices are unstable, and we have not made an effort to diversify the economy. So you could say what that, but that sounds like political grandstanding unless we have a plan. And the reality is that the quality of life in Trinidad and Tobago has deteriorated. And Mikey, I have written over the years and provided statistics about the widening wealth gap in Trinidad and Tobago. You know, Bernie Sanders talks about that in the U.S.
Yeah.
But that scenario is here in Trinidad and Tobago. 4 banks made $4.87 billion profit in the last fiscal year. They have, if you are a client in a bank, they have up to 70 charges and all kinds of things, while more people are getting poorer. And the gap has gotten wide. More corporations are making billions of dollars in the country. Our food import bill is 8-point-something billion now, while we are the largest agro farm in the Eastern Caribbean, 70,000 acres of former colony land. They gave it away to all kinds of people who have warehouses and so on, well-connected people. And our food import bill has gone up. So and that has an impact on foreign exchange. So all of those things have taken place. Mikey, we are the only CARICOM country, and this is confirmed by international agencies, we're the only that has a net outflow of investors. During the tenure of Mrs. Prasad Bissessa, we had an annual inflow in the last 2 or 3 years of $1.5 billion investors coming in. Now we have an outflow. We are the only country, and we are an industrialized country. Those little islands which only attract investors in tourism and hospitality and so on, they're doing better than us. All right, so we have had a flight. Lever Brothers left us after 50-something years. ArcelorMittal, and I could give you a long shopping list of those who have left and who has come in. None has come in, and it's because of the factors that they look for, security and so on, are not existent in the country. So on what is the basis that Vishnu Danpal is saying what he's saying? Maybe he has a plan.
Well, that's the thing, because I'm certain that citizens are walking around asking, well, is he going to get some sort of budget, a windfall of money is he expecting to gather? Because we have been trying to keep our heads above water for quite some time. And now you're telling us that, his tenure is not going to be, as short as it may be, is not going to bring financial hardship to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As if to say that the valve was deliberately squeezed on us, and now we're going to see some sense of release.
Yeah, well, we need to know. I guess you wouldn't have the time before the election to tell us what is the plan, unless they announce that on the campaign trail in specifics. But then again, Mikey, if you examine the PNM's manifesto in 2015 in particular, and 2020 to an extent, they spoke of plans to diversify the economy, major plans. Now, after nearly 10 years, the Prime Minister said 2 weeks ago, where did he say that? At some function somewhere, that let us depend, I'm telling you directly what he said, let us use telepathy to send good spiritual vibes so that dragon gas would. So after all of this, we depended on clairvoyance, the lady telling you to think positive and so on, somebody telling you that in a back room somewhere. And depend on dragon gas, which, as everybody knows, is not going anywhere anytime soon. So they've put their eggs in one basket after promising repeatedly for a decade that we would work to diversify. In fact, my research found that Mr. Manning, as Prime Minister, had promised diversification into several things, like shipbuilding, for example. We have the only secured port down at Chagaramas in Eastern Caribbean after St. Lucia.
That's right.
So, but we've never created the industry and so on. If you go turn up there with your yacht, you have to stand up in a line and they will fill out a form with paper. We still haven't digitized and all of those things. So we've made no effort to diversify the economy, and maybe Vishnu Danpal has a plan. We just
it has been said that his style of leadership is quite different. He's easily accessible when it comes to talking to the media compared to the former finance minister who would block journalists from contacting him and what have you. So, which is a big difference. But let's look at the core issue here of the election. and what needs to play out in order for perhaps the UNC to get that sort of traction and that political leverage. You know, many people are walking around asking questions and saying, listen, if this is being announced today, why didn't Rowley just simply announce it before he left? Here it is, you're talking about a new chapter on Monday, and then on Tuesday you call the date. Is this something that the UNC needs to play up and try to fill those gaps and try to bring about a plain picture as to why it is we're going through this crisis currently?
Yes, I think so. The short answer to your question, I think so. Why didn't Dr. Rowley make the announcement? Is it because he realized that his image was so tattered and he didn't want to be the one to lead the charge into the election? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's a result of the internal poll that said things about him and so on and so forth. Because you're right, he has retired from politics, or he has stepped down from the prime ministership less than 2 months after the parliament is dissolved. And most people would not do that. They would go to the end of the term.
Exactly.
And then not present themselves. So maybe he did this to give the PNM a better fighting chance.
Yeah, but in the midst of all of that, there's some confusion to the electorate as to what's going on. I mean, again, but there's more questions than answers. We've never had a prime minister relinquish power. You know, we've had many go to the polls, whether you win or you lose. Many have showed up. This is the first time. Again, we are in some uncharted waters. Then, of course, you have where some a shuffle, a reshuffle takes place, as if there's a new cabinet, and then the next day we get a date for the election. I mean, is this all part of their strategy, or something simply is not working out?
It could be part of their strategy, but it sounds like at 10 days, imagine they bring back the High Commissioner from London, from St. James Court, and he gets virtually 10 days here. So and I don't know if he's a politician in the sense that he will go on the street corner and campaign. He really is a technocrat and a public servant. So I don't know if he's going to make it out to campaign really. So that's a very interesting thing. It's also interesting that Stuart Young kept on essentially all the ministers, he didn't really blood.
And that's another thing, Ken. I mean, you have individuals who simply say, listen, I want to ride off in the sunset. There was no need to appoint Hines in any portfolio. There was no need to promote Adrian Leons. There was no need for that labor minister. I can never remember the McClatchy, whatever his name is, because he doesn't make much of a contribution. So I don't even think his constituents remember his name. But the fact of the matter is, what are we really seeing playing out here? Are these people who were rallying around Stuart Young to say, listen, we think he should be the one selected? Is this payback?
And there's some curious moves to add to what you just said. The Minister of Digital Transformation made him a minister in the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
And he told the media that there are some areas in the Ministry of Finance need to be digitized. Well, all you have to do is tell the Minister of Digital Transformation to digitize the Ministry of Finance. You don't have to put the man there. But apart from that, tell us what the Minister of Digital Transformation has done in Trinidad and Tobago. You were to the public service, you still have to wait forever to get things done. And in the rest of the world, you could get things, most developed countries, most developing countries too. You could get things done. You go to Singapore in one press of the button, you get everything synchronized and so on. The US, Canada, other places. We are still very backward. We're using paper and so on. And this is after all these years of promising public service reform and having now a designated Minister of Digital Transformation. In what area of public affairs, or what areas are digitized in Trinidad and Tobago, fully digitized?
Yeah.
If you apply, for example, let me give you one example. If you apply in the energy sector, there are several forms you have to fill out, and literal forms. And Mikey, you can't do 5 things at the same time, you know. You have to fill out one form, and then it has to go to another after it's completed. So there's several things you have to do, and that process takes forever. And that is why our ease of doing business, we are 105th in the world. A businessman is coming in here, but I've been taking 3 months to get an TNTech connection and so on. The whole thing about registering a business in Trinidad and Tobago, it's forever, and we've done nothing about those things.
All right. Any closing comments? Go right ahead.
I think the election would be a very close one. all eyes would be on Stuart Young. I listened to his speech or speeches. I think he must start with a speechwriter. I don't think he had laid out a vision really, except to talk about unity among the diverse society. Well, everybody's been talking about that since Rick Williams' days. I would like to hear what he has to say really about how he's going to take Trinidad out of our two major pitfalls. One is crime and the economic crisis in which we are in. So, Mikey, I think it's going to be a very close election, and we should put on our seatbelts and be prepared for it.
Thank you so much again. Always good to have you on. Keep up the good work, keep up the great writing, and we'll be checking in with you periodically. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mikey.
All right.